You walk in, and something just feels off. You've cleaned, decorated, maybe even saged the place, but deep down there's a heaviness like the walls are holding their breath. You sit on the couch, and instead of relaxing, you shrink. That's not imagination. That's blocked energy, and it's more common than you think. In Feng Shui, your home is not just where you live. It's a mirror of how energy flows or doesn't. And when that energy gets stuck, your sleep suffers, your focus blurs, your luck fades no matter how hard you try. The worst part, most people never realize the problem is right under their roof. A misplaced mirror, a bed facing the door, a cluster of shoes where blessings are meant to enter. Today I'll walk you through 7 signs your home is energetically stuck and what to do about it. These aren't abstract theories. They're real patterns I've seen ruin sleep, careers, and relationships silently, slowly. If you've ever wondered, why am I always tired at home, or why can't I move forward, this may be the answer. And the shift begins with awareness. Let's begin. Part 1. The entrance blocks energy. Most people think energy enters the home with sunlight or air. But in Feng Shui, energy has a door, a mouth, a first impression. And if that entrance is blocked even slightly, everything else inside begins to fade. Pause for a moment and think about your front door. Not how it looks, but how it feels. Is it open, clean, and inviting? Or is it narrow, cluttered, almost apologetic for being there? This space isn't just a passageway. It's where opportunity finds you, where fortune decides whether to enter or walk away. A home may be beautiful on the inside, but if the entrance is suffocating, its energy will never breathe. There's a strange irony in modern homes. We protect our privacy so fiercely that we unconsciously push away everything we actually desire: flow, light, movement, ease. The doorway becomes an afterthought, not a portal. And yet, this is where energy is most vulnerable. This is where it chooses to stay or leave. It doesn't matter if you have a mansion or a modest apartment. Feng Shui begins the moment energy arrives. The quality of that arrival shapes everything else. What blocks it? It's rarely something dramatic. It's shoes, dozens of them, piled without thought. It's trash bins, delivery boxes, a bicycle you've meant to move for weeks. It's a doormat too thick, soaked with days of dust, or colors too dark for life to pass through. It's lighting that forgets to welcome, a space too dim to feel safe, a scent that never changes. These aren't just messes, they're signals. They tell energy we're full, we're closed. Try next door. And then there's what you don't see. Entrances filled with noise, too many colors, signs, objects meant to impress but never to receive. Even artificial plants placed to look good but lacking kai. A front door that doesn't breathe cannot feed the rest of the home. And a home unfed begins to weaken in ways you don't connect right away. A promotion that falls through, a lingering headache, a mood you can't name. Some ask, but I clean the entrance every week. Isn't that enough? The truth. Cleanliness is only the surface. Feng Shui sees what can't be wiped with a cloth. Does the energy pause at your door, or does it rush in and feel nourished? Are you creating space for it to flow, or just removing dirt without restoring life? In ancient times, the doorway was sacred. It was always clear, always respected, not because of superstition but because of understanding. The entrance was where ancestors returned, where messages from the world arrived, where wealth first knocked. That reverence is missing now. And so, we confuse comfort with stagnation. We decorate for style, not for movement. We invite guests in, but leave blessings standing outside. A curious pattern emerges in homes with blocked entrances. The occupants often feel like they're trying very hard, yet nothing moves forward. The job offer always just out of reach. The relationship almost right, but never quite. The sleep deep, yet never fully restorative. You don't need a crystal to sense when your front door no longer carries energy in it, shows up in your body, in your breath, in your bank account. But perhaps what matters more is not just what we block, but what we fail to honor. When was the last time you stood at your door as if it were the heart of your home? Not as a function, but as a field. A field where invisible energy crosses into your life and shapes your experience. What do you think it hears when it arrives? Does it feel welcome? Or weary? Feng Shui doesn't ask for luxury. It asks for awareness. And nowhere is that awareness more crucial than at the point where life enters. Before you consider the living room or the bedroom, pause at the entrance. It's not about how the door opens, but whether it opens energetically. Whether the path is clear not just for feet, but for intention. Whether it is bright, warm, and quiet enough for opportunity to feel safe. Some doors are big, but block. Some are small, but flow. It's not the size of the space, it's the story the space is telling. And every object, scent, texture, and light at the entrance is part of that story. What is yours saying? Part 2. You feel tired even after rest. You've gone to bed early. The room is quiet. The temperature is just right. And yet, when morning comes, there's no lightness in your body. The weight you carried yesterday is still sitting on your chest. You've slept, but you haven't rested. This is one of the clearest yet most overlooked signs that the energy around your bed and within your bedroom is out of balance. It's easy to blame stress, age, or bad habits. But if sleep is supposed to restore, why does it feel like it's only repeating fatigue? Feng Shui doesn't just view the bed as furniture. It sees it as a place of energetic recovery, a station where your body shuts down so your life force can be replenished. When that station is misaligned, broken rest becomes a cycle that bleeds into your emotions, your decisions, even your sense of clarity. There's a reason the old masters called it the heart of the house. Because the bed, more than any couch, table, or screen, is where your internal compass resets. It's not just about where the bed sits, it's about how energy approaches it. A bed directly in line with the door, also known as the coffin position, doesn't just disturb sleep. It exposes the sleeper, energetically and emotionally. You may not know it, but your subconscious does. It scans for threat, it waits for motion, it stays alert, even as your eyelids close. And slowly, night after night, you begin to confuse exhaustion with normal life. But it's not just the position, it's the environment surrounding it. A bed under a heavy ceiling beam weighs on the body more than most realize. It presses down not just physically but energetically. Over time, this subtle compression creates anxiety, shallow breathing, tightness in the chest, and a sense of low-grade unease that follows you into the day. Some people believe changing the mattress will help, or repainting the walls. But without shifting the energetic tension above you, no material softness can undo the pressure of poor alignment. And then there's the headboard or lack of one. A bed placed without support behind it leaves you exposed. In Feng Shui, the wall behind your bed acts as the mountain. It's the element of support, grounding, security. When your head rests against open space, or worse, a window, your energy loses containment. You might fall asleep easily, but you'll wake up scattered mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You start the day fragmented, searching for direction without knowing where the pieces went missing.
What makes this even more curious is how often these misalignments are accepted as design choices.
People place beds under windows because it looks good on Pinterest, or they center the bed with the door for symmetry. And yet, the body never lies. It keeps telling you something is wrong. If your dreams are too vivid, your thoughts loop in circles before sleep, or you wake up at the same strange hour every night, your energy is speaking. Have you been listening? There's something deeply intimate about how the body responds to sleep. You cannot fake rest. You cannot decorate your way into stillness. The placement of your bed affects your ability to heal, not metaphorically, literally. Immunity, digestion, emotional resilience, all of it is connected to how safely your energy can settle each night. Perhaps the question isn't, do I like my bedroom? But does my bedroom like me back? A space can be beautiful and still be hostile. Expensive linens don't correct a layout that exposes you. Ambient music can't silence energy bouncing chaotically between misaligned furniture. Rest requires not just quiet but containment. And what of the things we bring into the bedroom, unaware of their impact? Mirrors facing the bed magnifying movement, amplifying tension, returning your own reflection to you even as you try to disappear into sleep. Electronics buzzing invisibly. Metal bed frames too reactive to subtle shifts in temperature and energy. Each element, each material becomes a participant in your recovery or your depletion. The truth is, sleep doesn't begin at night. It begins the moment your space tells your body, you're safe now. That message cannot be delivered if your back faces a door, if your ceiling feels like it's bearing down, if your thoughts are reflected back to you through glass you didn't realize was watching. In homes with good Feng Shui, people sleep more deeply not because they have better routines, but because the space cooperates. It cradles them. In homes with blocked energy, sleep feels like an attempt, never an arrival. The bed becomes a place of effort, not surrender. And yet, how many of us question our sleep but never question the bed itself? We try magnesium, therapy, new pillows but never pause to ask, what if the room itself is resisting me? Sometimes it's not your mind that's racing. It's your energy, trapped in a layout that doesn't know how to hold you. This is not about superstition. It's about systems. Systems of rest, systems of flow. And in Feng Shui, the bedroom is not a trend, it's a temple. When that temple is misaligned, the restoration it offers turns into residue, and every morning becomes a continuation of unresolved nights. So next time you wake up tired, not because of stress but in spite of sleep, return to the space itself. Not with judgment, not with panic,
but with eyes that see how your energy is being held or not held by the room around you.
because when rest is real, everything in life becomes easier to carry. Part 3. Mirrors reflect the wrong things. Some objects in your home don't just sit quietly, they speak. Mirrors are one of them. Not with words, but with reflections. With energy. With echoes that bounce back what you may not be ready to see. Most people place mirrors for design, for light, to make small rooms feel larger. But in Feng Shui, mirrors aren't decorative tools. They are amplifiers, multipliers. And when placed incorrectly, they don't reflect beauty, they reflect unrest. There's a reason why ancient traditions treated mirrors with caution. They were never placed casually, never opposite doors, never facing beds. Because what mirrors do is far deeper than reflect a face. They double what they see. And if what they see is the place where you sleep, rest, or restore, then what they double is your vulnerability. A mirror facing the bed doesn't just show your body, it fractures your peace. You may find yourself sleeping light, dreaming hard, or waking suddenly with a sense of being watched. And it's not imagination. It's energy looping. Thoughts that should have settled begin to echo. Dreams that should dissolve begin to repeat. Rest becomes elusive, and you wake up with your nervous system already slightly on edge. The bedroom is a yin space. It calls for quiet, softness, inwardness. A mirror is yang by nature, active, sharp, outward-facing. When you place yang into a yin space, you break the sanctuary. You invite movement into stillness. And without realizing it, you disrupt the deepest rhythm your body needs, the rhythm of letting go. But the bedroom isn't the only place mirrors matter. Some homes have mirrors facing the front door. It looks elegant, open, balanced, but energetically, it sends blessings back out before they can enter. Kai arrives, curious, ready to flow, and immediately gets bounced back. You may keep wondering why new opportunities fall through at the last moment. Why good news feels delayed. Why fortune hovers but doesn't land. The answer may be hanging right by your entrance, framed in glass. Mirrors in bathrooms reflect chaos, too much water, too much drainage, too much motion. Mirrors opposite the stove create tension. Food and fire are symbols of nourishment and stability. To mirror them is to double intensity, not warmth. And mirrors in dark corners, they trap what's already stuck. They amplify what should be softened. And suddenly, a home that's quiet doesn't feel peaceful, it feels cold. Empty, even when filled with things. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. A mirror is neither good nor bad. But like fire, it must be placed with understanding. If it reflects light, movement, and life positioned to carry brightness into deeper parts of the home, it becomes a channel. But if it reflects disarray, stress, or sacred spaces like the altar, the stove, or the bed, it becomes a distortion. A duplication of what should have been released. The mirror is also symbolic. It represents how we see ourselves, how we multiply our thoughts. If your mirror constantly shows you clutter, shadows, or objects you no longer love, you are reinforcing those images into your subconscious. Over time, the mirror doesn't just reflect your space, it shapes your perception of it. And in turn, your perception of yourself. So the question becomes not do I have mirrors, but what are they multiplying? Peace or noise, softness or sharpness, intention or habit? Because in Feng Shui, nothing is neutral. Everything either supports you or distracts you. The mirror, though silent, holds immense influence over what gets repeated both energetically and emotionally. The most aligned mirrors are framed especially with round or closed shapes to contain energy, not scatter it. They never face beds, doors, or bathrooms. They rest in bright spaces, inviting depth without distortion. They extend flow without interrupting it. They help light travel, not turn it back. And in the end, it's not about getting rid of mirrors. It's about treating them like companions, not decor. Placed with care, they open up energy. Placed without thought, they mirror exactly what you're trying to move beyond. If your home has felt restless, cold, or vaguely unsettling, despite being clean and organized, perhaps it's time to stop looking at what's in the mirror and start looking at where the mirror is. Part 4. The house holds too much. Some homes don't feel heavy because of their size, but because of what they refuse to release. Closets packed with clothes that haven't been worn in years. Drawers filled with cords for devices long gone. Corners crowded with things saved just in case. These spaces aren't cluttered with objects, they're cluttered with indecision. And in Feng Shui, indecision is one of the quickest ways to trap energy. We often believe that keeping something just in case is practical. But energetically, it sends a different message. We are preparing for lack, not flow. A house filled with too many what-ifs often belongs to someone who feels stuck, uncertain, or constantly waiting. That feeling doesn't just sit in your mind, it takes shape in your environment. The deeper truth is this: every item in your home carries a vibration. Things broken, chipped, outdated, or unused no longer contribute, they subtract. A broken lamp isn't just a non-working object. It's a pocket of dead energy, dimming that corner of your life. A cracked vase, even if once expensive, symbolizes fragility left unrepaired. A stopped clock quietly marks the slowing down of your own forward motion. And while you might walk past these items every day without noticing them, your energy doesn't. It registers. It absorbs. What's particularly curious is how we often hold on to these things not out of love, but out of avoidance. The guilt of letting go, the fear of needing it later, the emotional tie to a memory that no longer brings us joy. We confuse possession with preservation. But in Feng Shui, when you keep too much of the past, you narrow the path for the future to arrive. Some believe more things bring more security. But look closely at homes that overflow. The cabinets never quite close. The bags sit unpacked. Surfaces collect not only dust, but decisions unmade. That kind of environment doesn't protect, it drains. Not all clutter looks chaotic. Some of it is neatly stored in boxes, labeled and tucked away. But if what's being stored no longer serves who you are becoming, it isn't organization. It's resistance. There's a subtle fatigue that builds in cluttered homes, a tension in the chest, a sense of overwhelm that appears without clear reason. You might notice forgetfulness, irritability, or trouble finishing things. And yet you never think to look at the storage room, the overfilled bookshelf, the pile behind the bedroom door. Because the mess is not dramatic, it's familiar. And familiarity can be deceiving. Even spiritual or sentimental items can become energetically stagnant. Old letters, dried bouquets, gifts from people no longer in your life, they hold vibrations of what once was, but no longer is. To honor something doesn't always mean to keep it. Sometimes it means letting it go with gratitude, making space for what your life is calling in now. Feng Shui is less about removing things and more about restoring flow. If an item inspires, supports, or stabilizes you, it stays. If it confuses, drains, or crowds you, it disrupts. The challenge is rarely knowing what's useful. The challenge is accepting that letting go isn't loss, it's movement. What's surprising is how quickly a shift happens when clutter is cleared. Not only in the room but in the body. People often report sleeping better after reorganizing, feeling lighter, finding forgotten dreams in the act of discarding forgotten objects. Because as your environment exhales, so do you. This isn't about minimalism or bare rooms. It's about alignment. A full house can still breathe if every item in it carries presence and purpose. But a house that hoards, even with clean floors and designer labels, cannot circulate life energy. Stagnant energy shows up in subtle ways: missed opportunities, recurring tension, plans that almost manifest but never quite land. So next time you wonder why progress feels slow, why joy feels dim, or why your thoughts circle but never land, pause. Look at what surrounds you, not with judgment but with honesty. Is your home filled with choices or with echoes? Is it a reflection of who you are or who you used to be? Sometimes the space isn't too small. It's just too full of things that no longer fit the version of you who's trying to emerge. Part 5. Rooms feel heavy or cold. Some rooms don't shout, they whisper. But the feeling they leave behind lingers like a shadow that never fully lifts. You walk in and something changes in your breath. Not dramatically, but enough. The air is still, the light doesn't move, and even sound feels muted. It's not silence, it's stagnation. And in Feng Shui, this is one of the most telling signs that energy has stopped circulating. These rooms are not necessarily messy. In fact, they're often the cleanest. The guest room no one sleeps in, the hallway with no purpose, the bathroom with no window. Spaces that exist but aren't fully lived in. Over time, they become pockets of trapped chi areas the home has stopped breathing into. And what the house doesn't breathe, you can't fully receive. In environments where yin energy dominates, cold, dark, damp, the space begins to absorb instead of radiate. What should feel safe begins to feel sluggish. You might not notice it right away, but the symptoms appear elsewhere. You feel drained after being in certain rooms. Your mood shifts without clear reason. Tasks feel heavier. Ideas don't land. These aren't emotional flaws, they're spatial conditions. When energy slows, life follows. What blocks energy in these rooms isn't always physical clutter, it's energetic neglect. Curtains that never open, windows kept shut, corners no light ever touches, air that hasn't moved in weeks. A scentless, motionless room doesn't invite vitality. It stores old vibration. And old vibration has a weight, subtle but suffocating. It's a common misunderstanding to think of darkness as merely an aesthetic. But in Feng Shui, light is more than visibility, it's movement. Morning sun doesn't just brighten a room, it activates it. It burns off heavy Qi, awakens circulation, rebalances polarity. When light can't reach a space, stagnation isn't just likely, it's inevitable. That's why homes with heavy curtains drawn all day, or north-facing rooms never opened, begin to feel like they've stopped evolving. The people inside often echo that stillness emotionally, physically, even spiritually. Air, too, is a carrier of Qi. When windows are never opened, energy begins to sour. The lungs of the home shut down, and in time, those who live within start to experience symptoms that mimic the house: shallow breath, low energy, confusion without cause. What you breathe isn't just oxygen, it's energetic tone. And the space you sleep in, work in, or simply exist in shapes that tone more than most realize. But sometimes the issue isn't light or air, it's function. Spaces that are filled with things but empty of meaning. A shelf for display but not for life. A table too cluttered to eat at. A chair that's never used. These aren't furnishings, they're frozen gestures. They trap energy the way unresolved feelings trap memory. The more unused areas a house has, the more fragmented the energy becomes. It doesn't flow, it jumps, it hesitates. And in that hesitation, fatigue takes root. What's more subtle, but perhaps more important, is how these stagnant rooms affect the tone of the entire home. Feng Shui is never about a single space. It's about coherence. A home where one room is vibrant and another is lifeless will always create an emotional mismatch. The occupants often feel pulled in two directions, motivated, yet depleted, clear, yet ungrounded. Harmony is not about uniform design, it's about balanced energy. Without that, even the most beautiful homes feel cold. And then there's the question we rarely ask: how much of your home is actually in use? Not in function, but in presence. Are there areas you avoid without realizing? Rooms that feel harder to enter? Spaces you clean but never inhabit? Every part of your home should feel accessible to your energy. Not just physically, but emotionally. If there are places that feel separate, disconnected, or unreachable, you're not just avoiding the room, you're avoiding a part of your own Qi. Sometimes the body recognizes what the mind hasn't yet named. You may find yourself skipping certain corners, turning on lights quickly, then off again, feeling an unspoken discomfort when walking past closed doors. Feng Shui listens to these micro-movements. It doesn't label them as irrational, it studies them. Because where energy avoids, something is asking to be seen. There's also an emotional component to this kind of stagnation. Rooms that have absorbed sadness, illness, or conflict hold on to that imprint. The walls remember. The air thickens. Even after time passes, the energetic residue remains unless it's cleared intentionally. And until that clearing happens, no redesign will shift the feeling. So what does this mean in practice? It means noticing where light no longer dances, where air feels stale even after cleaning, where you've stopped visiting but don't know why. It means understanding that not every room needs more things, many just need to be reawakened. Light a candle in the afternoon. Open a window even for 10 minutes. Rearrange a chair to face the sun. Let music play in a space that has forgotten joy. These gestures may seem small, but energetically, they're profound. A heavy room doesn't mean your life is heavy, but it might mean part of your life hasn't been invited in. And until it is, the home will reflect that absence not as punishment, but as truth. The house mirrors not just who you are, but which parts of you have been left waiting. Part 6. Plants don't thrive. There's a silence in a room where a plant once thrived. A kind of stillness that isn't peaceful but paused. The leaves have browned at the edges. The soil feels tired. The pot hasn't been moved in weeks. And even if no one mentions it, everyone notices it. In Feng Shui, when life stops growing in your space, energy stops circulating. A healthy plant is not just decoration, it's confirmation that the energy in your home is not only present, but nourishing. When a plant grows upward, leaves glossy and open, it means the Qi in your environment is feeding more than objects, it's feeding potential. But when a plant droops, yellows, or dies, it's not just the plant that's struggling. It's the flow. Something is no longer supporting life in that corner, that room, that house. We often blame our forgetfulness. I forgot to water it. It wasn't getting enough sun. But behind those excuses is a deeper question: why did you stop noticing? Why did that part of the room fade from your attention? In Feng Shui, neglect of a plant is rarely just about the plant. It's a sign of disconnection from place, from presence, from growth itself. There is something deeply symbolic about a plant. Unlike furniture, it responds, it shifts daily. It requires not just placement, but relationship. A dying plant is more than unsightly, it's absorbing energy and returning nothing. It becomes an energetic sponge holding on to what is stagnant, transmitting decline. The same goes for wilted bouquets, dry stems in dusty vases, plastic flowers that simulate beauty but contain no life force. These objects sit still, but their stillness is sterile, and sterile energy, when overused, suffocates. What's even more subtle is how often we keep dead plants or flowers out of habit. A bouquet from a meaningful dinner, now brittle but too beautiful to throw away. A potted gift from someone we no longer speak to. We hold on to what once had life but now holds memory. Feng Shui reminds us energy lives in the present. When we keep symbols of endings, we anchor our environment in what has already passed. And then there are homes filled with artificial plants, perfect, dust-free, lifeless. They create the illusion of care without the commitment. They look fresh but offer no response. And in a space where everything looks alive but nothing is truly living, the energy becomes shallow. Movement without pulse, beauty without breath. But what's most powerful about plants isn't just their presence. It's where they're placed. A vibrant plant in a dark corner transforms the energy of that space. It softens sharp angles, balances chi, reconnects the room with nature's upward rhythm. In Feng Shui, wood energy, the element plants represent, brings growth, new beginnings, resilience. But only when it's alive, only when it's tended. A forgotten pot in the corner does the opposite. It holds weight, it drags time, it stifles expansion. Consider the places in your home where plants have died repeatedly. Have you ever asked why? Is it the lighting or is it the energy? Plants are messengers. If they keep failing in a certain space, the space itself may be struggling. Airflow, sunlight, intention all play a part, but so does the room's history. Rooms that have held grief, conflict, or prolonged illness often resist life force. Until that memory is released, no new life will root easily. This is not about becoming a perfect plant parent. It's about observing, listening, understanding that a plant's decline is your home whispering that something needs to shift. Maybe it's the arrangement, maybe it's your pace, maybe it's the energy asking to be refreshed. On the other hand, when you care for a plant, even something small, a pothos, a peace lily, a sprig of herbs, you activate a channel, a loop of giving and receiving. You water, it breathes, you prune, it grows. That exchange feeds the room. It makes the house feel inhabited not just by people, but by life itself. Feng Shui doesn't demand a forest. One thriving plant can transform a space more than a dozen withering ones. It's the presence of vitality, not quantity, that matters. Choose plants your space can support. Place them where they can stretch. Let them speak to you through their condition. Not every plant is a lesson, but every plant tells a truth. And if your plants aren't thriving, it may be worth asking what else in your life has stopped growing quietly. What corners of your attention have closed without your consent? Sometimes, tending a single plant is enough to start opening those corners again. Because when life returns to a space, opportunity doesn't hesitate, it follows. Part 7. Pets react to invisible energy. There's a moment, often dismissed, when your dog barks into an empty corner and doesn't stop. Or when your cat avoids a certain spot in the house, no matter how sunny or soft it seems. These aren't quirks, they're signals. In Feng Shui, animals are among the most sensitive receivers of chi. They feel what we've long stopped noticing. Unlike us, animals don't rationalize their instincts. They don't stay in places out of politeness or habit. If a space feels off, they leave it. If it feels dense, they hesitate. If it feels unsafe, they alert. And if they return again and again to a place of stillness or warmth, it's because the energy there welcomes them. Pets often become the first responders to energetic imbalance. Before people feel fatigue, animals change their eating habits. Before the room feels heavy, a cat will avoid it. Before arguments begin between humans, pets show signs of unease, pacing, hiding, even sickness without cause. These aren't coincidences. They're conversations spoken in a language older than thought. What's especially telling is consistency. If your dog refuses to sleep in a particular room, even when coaxed, or your bird goes quiet near a certain wall, pause. Ask not what's wrong with the pet, but what's happening in that space. Has it been stagnant too long? Is there unresolved energy lingering from past events? A lingering grief, a conflict never voiced. Animals respond to Kai in motion, and to Kai that's been stuck. And their patterns often reveal the energetic blueprint of the house. In homes where the energy is aligned, pets are calm, grounded, and alert, but not anxious. They move freely, rest deeply, and maintain balanced rhythms. But in homes with energy that's blocked, animals show signs we often misread. Sudden restlessness, refusal to eat, barking at what seems to be nothing. And yet, Feng Shui teaches nothing is ever truly nothing. The space holds memory, frequency, shift. There are stories of dogs barking for weeks at a closet where an argument happened years before. Cats that sit by altars only at certain times of day, when the light and Kai are balanced. Even fish that swim erratically in aquariums placed near mirrors or sharp furniture angles. These patterns aren't random. They are blueprints of unseen truth. It's important, too, to watch how pets interact with the entrance of a home. If they resist it, linger near it with tension, or hesitate to cross the threshold, it's worth checking that space. The front door, as you know, is the mouth of Kai. If your pet stands guard or becomes reactive near it, there may be energy arriving that needs redirecting, cleansing, or calming. And while we often worry about health when pets act out, we rarely think to check the layout, the lighting, the airflow, the vibration. Yet in Feng Shui, all of these speak first to those most tuned in: the animals, the plants, the silence itself. A barking dog may be asking you to open a window not just for air but for Kai. A cat retreating under the bed may be telling you there's too much yang above, or too little grounding below. This isn't mystical, it's relational. Animals live in direct contact with the environment. They sense its breath, its breaks, its blessings. They carry none of the filters we use to dismiss discomfort. They act, they avoid, they seek. And when we pay attention, their behavior becomes not just understandable but profoundly useful. Sometimes all a pet needs is the same thing we do: a shift in space. A clearing of an ignored corner. A gentle sound to disrupt stagnation. A bowl of salt to absorb what we can't name. And when the energy realigns, pets return. Their bodies stretch, their breath deepens, their eyes soften, and in that return the space begins to heal.
The question isn't what's wrong with my pet, it's what are they trying to show me. In Feng Shui, healing often begins when we stop trying to fix symptoms and start reading signs.
Pets don't lie, they reflect. And their reflections are often the truest mirrors we have. Because where animals no longer feel safe, humans rarely feel fully alive. You're not alone if you've overlooked these things. Most people live in homes that look fine but feel off, and they can't explain why. They decorate with intention but still feel drained. They clean regularly, yet certain rooms feel unwelcoming. They sleep enough but wake up tired. It's not that anything is wrong, it's that something isn't flowing. Blocked entrances, beds that face doors, mirrors that echo unrest, objects held too long, rooms that forgot warmth, plants that no longer grow. Pets reacting to what can't be seen. These aren't isolated flaws, they're patterns. And these patterns often repeat because we've been taught to look for problems, not energy. Feng Shui doesn't judge your space, it listens to it. And today, if your home has shown you something through these signs, it's not a failure. It's a moment of awareness. A chance to ask, is your home holding your energy or trapping it? Is it a field that expands your life, or a container that keeps replaying the same chapter? You see, we don't realize how many of us make the same unconscious choices. Piling shoes at the door, letting corners gather dust and silence, hanging mirrors where they reflect tension instead of light, holding on to dead flowers, sleeping under beams, placing beauty over flow. These are not unusual. In fact, they're so common that they've become invisible. And when something becomes invisible, we stop questioning it. But energy doesn't forget. Every object, every placement, every unopened window leaves a trace. And over time, these traces build a vibration that begins to shape how we feel, how we think, how we receive. That's why two homes with the same layout can feel entirely different. It's not the structure, it's the story the space is telling through energy. And the question becomes, is it your story or someone else's left behind? Your home doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to breathe again. And breath begins with space, with flow, with attention. It begins when we stop filling rooms to feel safe and start clearing space to feel alive. No ritual or object matters more than how the space receives you day after day, night after night. Because in the end, Feng Shui is not about rules. It's about resonance. Not about changing your home, but remembering how to listen to it. And when you do, the changes will not just be visible. They will be felt quietly, consistently, from the moment you step through the door.